The initial approach was fancy a week knee-deep in recycling. What the Great Recovery wanted us to do was be knee-deep in this stuff.
In terms of where it goes from here, I have no idea.
Expecting to see lots of things that would be a bit scary. Your closest analogy is something out of a science fiction film.
You just see where design comes to die.
We're trying to find out how we can immerse designers more fully into the waste experience. What we're going to do with that is then take it away and then have some kind of understanding of where design can impact.
We do projects all over the world, usually looking at unusual materials and recycling. There's a project we're working on called Sea Chair into the North Atlantic Gaia, and we're essentially making a big 3D printer that runs on the sun's energy. It's a big parabolic mirror that concentrates the sun's energy into one focal point. We'll be printing it through this screw onto like a moving bed underneath to take on board a boat to take to sea and allow us to print with sea plastic.
I work for the Agency of Design. We're an environmental design and strategy company. I've been running for 3.5 years. We help a whole range of companies develop products and services for the circular economy, finding out how they can help make the circular economy happen. We did a couple of the projects in the first round of the Great Recovery that was sponsored by the Technology Strategy Board. They were collaborations with people like Kingfisher, a few of our own projects.
Am I a designer? I don't know. Yeah, on the fringes of design. So currently I'm doing a project where I'm trying to become a goat, to live like a goat and to kind of eat grass and walk on 4 legs and basically take a holiday from being a human, exploring how we as human beings relate to kind of the animal world and, you know, the kind of long history of co-evolution that man and animals have.
This is a public collection and drop-off centre for all types of materials on the recycling streams.
You turn up with your, carload of stuff and you kind of drive round in a circle, dropping off your old TV at the kind of electricals bucket.
And where do they go? Where do your fridges go? There's a company called Ozone. They dismantle them safely, recycle what can be recycled and dispose of them.
And then you drop off your plasterboard in the plasterboard bin.
Lots of cardboard, lots of old wood, lots of scrap metal.
White paint, which you're always finding yourself going out to buy, is like here in abundance because rarely do people actually finish a pot.
At the very end you get to a little spot which is for things which aren't waste.
It's interesting that the stuff that's in the sort of corner behind me is still functioning products.
It was interesting that was, this kind of little corner for things which, they're not rubbish, was right at the end of the sort of the circuit and a bit kind of hidden away.
This is wood here. Wood. This one is one of my biggest sellers. This is my top line.
There is a lot of IKEA stuff in there. It's very much like fast fashion, and seeing these bins just fill up of like things that are probably like a year or 2 old.
So just dropping off old wardrobe there.
IKEA and only like 9 months, which is quite bad.
Yeah. I think it's MDF, so it can remake new furniture probably.
There's obviously some people felt a bit guilty or sad that something was broken or they didn't want it anymore, even though they knew it still, it looked new and it kind of looked like it wasn't something you should throw away yet. Some people would sort of barter when they're there, they'd do exchanges, like someone was throwing away a bird cage and someone else took it.
It's nice chaps, so they think they can do something
like
with it.
Them, so. And that's quite nice, isn't it? Quite often when you bring something here, almost inevitably somebody asks you if they can have it.
Technically, as soon as anything touched the floor of the site, it couldn't be taken away again. It was the property of the council. Some people just want to turn up and throw all their stuff in the household waste bin, the sort of non-recycling, whereas some people really kind of are quite meticulous about, where does this frying pan go, where does this go, and want to do it properly.
You do have conscientious people, and I love them. I really do love them.
They don't necessarily think about where it goes or where it ends up.
You hear horror stories about, you know,
It
it all being dumped in a third world country and little kids picking up, you know, bits that they can from it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
I would like to know. One hopes that, I mean, it's very good that they're recycling wood now, so the wood gets thrown out, whether that's just not burnt as fuel.
If it's all going in one bin, it's obviously got to go somewhere to be sorted out. So where's it going to?
It's called an eco park, and I think they're moving in the right direction, definitely. I mean, they're doing some good things there.
There's much more sorting of the waste than I expected, because they had a kind of pre-sorting process, so where the black bin bags came.
Valuable material.
That's been separated from the household waste.
Yes.
There's probably more recovery and separation than there would be at landfill, because it just goes straight in the pile. But then there's obviously still lots of stuff that goes in the incinerator that could be potentially recycled, because there's lots of stuff that just gets chucked in.
We had a quick look at ash and saw how the aggregate or the residue from the incineration process can be quite valuable, and is used in the building and construction industry. The group today were fascinated by waste input and the amount of waste that's seen in the bunker area.
It's something you never really see of the inside of a big industrial process, and there's huge hoppers that are like the size of a 5-storey building, each one, just for storing the waste in.
And each kind of grab of these kind of claws would be 1 tonne of rubbish, and 1 tonne of rubbish is about the same amount of rubbish that a household produces in a year.
Got a very clear mental picture of where your waste goes, and actually that's probably one of the best bits, because you really question what's going into each bin bag afterwards, because you've got a very strong image of where that's ending up.
We generate enough electricity for 72,000 homes every year.
Rubbish into energy, that's a good use for it. I mean, it's certainly better than burying it. Then you start to think, okay, what is in all these black bags?
North London's doing quite well. You know, 30% recycling.
They were quite proud of that, but I thought 30% is just rubbish. I mean,
we're hoping to get to 50%.
Talking about the circular economy, and if 70% of material in each cycle is being kind of burnt, then that's really not very circular.
The challenge is what's going into that system. It's what's being fed into it, because they just get a lorry load of black bin bags, and a lot of it will just go straight into the furnace.
We've seen one type of technology today that, it's a massive capital investment, be running for 40 years, will run for a long time, infrastructurally huge.
I mean, it seems perhaps the industry is ripe for a kind of more nimble sort of the Amazon of waste to come along, or something like that, or the Uber of waste, or whatever kind of new information-driven take on this industry. L&B, they're this company in one of those sort of industrial estate warehouses that you kind of drive through, on your way out of London. They're a nice company.
L&B is quite incredible because it collects textiles from not just London, but a large part of Britain. It costs them money to pick up these textile things and bring them in, and you've got to really find a value in everything you pick up.
Clothes, like old textiles, old shoes, whatever.
Also go all the way down to 120 different categories of sorting.
It's a completely manual process, so ultimately there has to be a value judgment. There has to be someone saying, this is too dirty, or this bit of stitching here has come undone.
Then send them off to various places where they're, resold and reused and reworn.
Ross is fantastic. He's full of incredible stories. He's very open.
That's Israeli gas mask.
Happy to kind of share any of the kind of secrets of his business.
He's grown up with this business and it's always changing because the way we consume clothes changes.
Looking for, ways to kind of incrementally improve the current system. Something which I didn't quite think could happen at the kind of huge, kind of vast kind of eco park and stuff. And they are, they're looking, but they're just not as nimble as, the kind of LMBs of the world.
A big problem at Regis Road was that some of the waste streams work really well, some of them not so well, but ultimately they're also missing just a huge proportion of the waste. A lot of it's going into black bin bags.
Ross had come up with this way of getting people's kind of old clothes directly from their houses.
It's a bag that you could give out to people in the household. They fill it with their clothes. It had a one-way seal.
So when it gets crushed in the back of the...
it all comes out. And
all the air comes out so it doesn't pop.
It can be put with smelly garbage and the clothes don't smell. And so it's this remarkable thing where you can put something out with your trash and it can be saved as an item.
The bag's strong enough that it goes through the bag splitter, then they pick it off at the sorting line at Murph.
It makes it extremely easy for people to do the right thing.
It meant that he could get loads more clothes direct from households to his recycling centre.
LMB was a refreshing sort of success story, really.
This is a really nice model of how you try and extend the life of a garment for as long as possible.
One of the things that you learn about during your kind of design career is that small changes to signage or kind of the service would encourage people to do different things.
Some of those ideas are about collection, about how you communicate to your consumers, how you do the signage at the site, how you guide people that there's a reuse centre, but it's right at the end of all the containers. So if you just kind of switch them around, you probably quadruple the amount of stuff left for reuse. It was quite amorphous what we presented.
Amenity site, pretty good collection. It separates all the stuff, but fundamentally a lot of stuff must still be just going into black bin bags. There's still a huge amount of people who don't have cars, so they wouldn't come here, or it's too much for a trip.
A suggestion was you could try and divert some of this kind of these electrical things from that kind of skip to eBay.
I perceive it as duty of care more than...
But that's a very positive, that's a more positive position to be in, isn't it? So then you can say, okay, how then can we find a way to actually maximise value from that and make sure you still cover that duty of care?
I think they felt constrained. They felt like there wasn't the freedom just to say, oh yeah, okay, let's try that, let's move stuff around.
I'd like to go back and try it.
They had a lot of responsibility to deal with the waste in the right way and make sure it had to be approved and it had gone to the right place and it was kind of safe disposal. So the phrase they used was duty of care, that they wanted to do the right thing.
Of course, we're not going to have, magically sort of solve all the kind of problems.
They were doing the correct thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're making the most out of that sort of collection of resources that they've got.
So I was there to, see what happens to this stuff after you wave goodbye. And I think it worked from that point of view, because I've definitely got a couple of amazing ideas I'll be keen on doing. The Great Recovery, they're all about this kind of asking questions and just kind of sparking these ideas in people's brains.